what's it like using satire and humor when covering the news?
Well, it's great. I mean, it's just an interesting way to, it kind of merges two things that I care passionately about, which one, of course, is the news and what is happening in the world that we live in, and comedy, which is just a part of my life and my nature and my passion in life. So it's really kind of the best job that I could ask for. Being in two wheelhouses at the same time is really, it's incredibly satisfying. It's great.
Does it not surprise you that more people prefer to watch The Daily Show over mainstream news media?
People say that a lot, and I do think that people appreciate what we do on our show, but I also think that people give us too much credit for informing them. You know, I think that if you love our show, it's probably because you care about what's going on in the world, and you actually probably get your news from the mainstream media, and then you come to our show as a way to kind of see that news through a different lens. So we definitely, I think, provide catharsis and a kind of a different take on things. But if you didn't have a really strong foundation in what the actual news was, I don't think you would find our show funny. And people often disagree with me, but I think that's the truth. I think in general that's the way it goes.
Okay. Well, as a correspondent on the show, you've conducted several interviews throughout the years.
Yes.
Was there ever an interview that didn't go as planned or a question you regretted asking?
No interview ever goes as planned. I will say that, because you have your own kind of agenda when you sit down and talk to someone, and you have your own idea about how you want the interview to go. But people they can't always read your mind and go with you on that journey. So people always take the interview in directions that we weren't expecting. So I would say that's generally always the way it is, that it's not as expected, and I wouldn't say that I've really regretted asking questions. If there's a question that I plan to ask, it's usually, sometimes I'm afraid to ask it, but I don't really regret it afterwards, because if there's a question that I think I'll regret, I simply don't ask it. I might have something in there, there's a line that I won't cross. I don't always know what that line is until I get to it, and then I look at a question and I go, oh, I'm not going to say that. So I'm my own best judge when it comes to that.
Okay. There was a recent debate about women not being funny. Does it bother you more as a comedian or as a woman when men say that? Or do you think that statement isn't really that big of a deal?
For me, it's just not a part of my belief system. So I appreciate that people have different takes on things, and but for me, when I grew up, when I was a little kid, I was a consumer of female comedians. In my regular routine, it was just a part of my growing up. I used to watch the Carol Burnett show. I'm talking about a little girl, 6 years old. I watched the Carol Burnett show, and I watched SCTV and Catherine O'Hara and Andrea Martin and Lucille Ball and Maude, B. Arthur. Like, those women who were hilariously funny and successful were just a part of how I grew up. So people can say what they want. It's just not a reality that I think is really reflected in pop culture. So, people have differing opinions on any topic of conversation. I don't happen to agree that women aren't funny, and I am a woman who's a comedian, so of course I don't agree with that. But I don't think that you can ever really win people over to your side. Some people just want to believe that women can't be funny, and they'll never find a woman funny. And I say, if those people don't want to watch me, then they should not watch me, because I don't want them watching me, in that way.
Yeah. And finally, what is your favorite interview you conducted?
I don't really have a favorite. I've learned something from, I try to be really open-minded, and I try to learn something from everyone who I talk to. And so, with the exception of very few people who I have found pretty offensive in general, I have a good time with the people that I sit down with, and I try to get to know them, and I try to get to know where they're coming from, and usually it's pretty successful. So no one really stands out in my mind as the greatest interview ever, because I feel like each one has imprinted on me a little bit. So I wouldn't really choose one or the other necessarily. I did want to talk a little bit about my partnership with Dove. I've been approached by Dove to create this partnership called Truth Tuesdays, which is part of the larger Dove Truth Files campaign. So if you want to go to the website, DoveTruthFiles.com, you can learn all about that. It's just me talking to real women. One of the things I love about Dove is how they reach out to real women, and so that's why I was thrilled to create a partnership with them. And you can find us on Twitter at Dove, #TruthTuesdays.
Okay, then.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting our fans know about that.
Thank you.